Hi guys, I'm going to show you the process of paper macheing now. If you've had sculpture class, you probably don't need to watch this because it's the same thing that we've done in class. In a previous video, I explained how to make paper mache using flour and water, and that's what I have here. I have watered it down quite a bit to make it pretty runny for this process. And that's just a matter of personal preference. Some people keep it chunky for this process. One thing I forgot to tell you in the last video is that you can keep this for about 3 days in your refrigerator until it starts to get moldy. So you do want to make it in relatively small batches so that you don't end up having to throw a bunch away. Also, when you do throw it away, do not dump it down your drain. It will clog your sink. So, because this stuff solidifies pretty well, as you will find out. So what I do is I just dump it in the trash can. It's biodegradable too, so you could, throw it out in the garden bed. I don't think it would do any damage if you did that, because it's just flour and water. Alright, so here are some things I have that I'm going to paper mache. I've decided to make what are called fascinators for the class I'm taking at KU right now, and they're pretty wild. So my class is a metal smithing class. Oh, I really love this one. Look at that. Whoa! And obviously I can't work with metals. I don't have the equipment at home and I don't have access to the studio right now. So this is what I've chosen to do, is a paper mache type thing. This one I'm going to add quite a bit to it with fabric and sequins later, but it's a birthday cake. And I keep putting these on the side of my head because that's traditionally how fascinators are worn. If you look up fascinators and like the royal wedding or the royal ascot party, all the women are wearing these amazing little hats, little headpieces called fascinators. So that's what those are all about. Anyway, for these, this one and this one that have these little areas on it, that's going to be kind of a pain in the butt to paper mache, but I have to do it because it's going to give it the structure and make it nice and solid. Right now it's kind of flimsy. So what I'm going to do, instead of using newspaper, which is what we've used in class, I've decided to use just strips of paper towels because they're much more flimsy and I can manipulate them really easily. So all you do, now this is going to get, soak it up a lot faster than the newspaper would, but and also it's easier to rip. So, but all you do is you use your fingers as a squeegee and dunk it, and then squeegee it, and then you just start wrapping everything up that needs to be paper macheed. Once this paper gets wet, it's not going to want to hold its form like you want it to. So you will probably need to prop things up so that once it dries, it is the form that you want it to be. I do have an example over here. For these, I was just messing around. These are just streamers, which is why they're already colored, but they were just a long squishy mess once I paper mache'd them, but I ended up actually wrapping it around this, and it's still, kind of wiggly, but it's very firm. So now it's got this shape that it didn't have before. So you can do that pretty easily. Anyway, I'm going to paper mache all of these. One thing, let me start with the newspapers, just for everyone that hasn't seen this before. This is kind of a long piece to dunk into this little can, so I just ripped it, and now it's more manageable. So remember that you're the boss of your art project. The material is not the boss, although it might want to be. So make it work for you. Now, I'm using newspaper for this one. And each piece that you add, you have to smooth. Otherwise, you're going to have bumps and wrinkles, and it's not going to be as smooth. It's going to be really hard to paint it later. So smooth it as much as possible, and then the next piece that you put on there, you will overlap. Overlap the last piece. Remember, it's like mowing the lawn. You want to make sure you don't miss a spot. On your first layer, it's easy to see what you've done, but on your second and third layers, which you should always try and do 3 layers of paper mache to make it nice and sturdy, it's hard to see what you've already done because the whole thing ends up getting wet and slimy. So just go in like an organized direction, and then that will help you make sure that you cover the whole thing as many times as you intend. Well, so I'm working on this old table in my art studio, and I do not care if it gets messy, but if you're doing this on your dining room table, you need to put something down to work on, because this stuff will hurt the finish of a table. So put a piece of newspaper down, put a piece of aluminum foil down. I actually have aluminum foil right here that I'm going to set my pieces on to dry so that they don't stick to this work surface. But right now I really don't care about this, and I'm just going to scrub it down. It already has covered in paint and other things. So just make sure that you're taking care of your space and taking care of your art materials, especially if you're using a space like your kitchen or living room to work in during these art at home days. So, because remember, we don't want to annoy anybody while we're being artists.